Hey there, Wade the Grandstreeter here. We are in Groton, Connecticut. What's Groton, Connecticut known for? Well, it's the submarine capital of the world. Yep, and we are going to see Connor and Cameron. No, not Cameron. We are going to go see the USS Nautilus. So come and join us. When you come up to the Sub Museum, there's some outdoor exhibits first to see. And I remember these being on the inside of the sub base when I was in the Navy. I was stationed here in Groton. And I remember seeing these a long time ago. They're starting to decay a little bit, but they're doing their best to keep them up. This is the first one. This is a World War II Japanese sub. This here is the USS X-1. It was the first US sub built to penetrate enemy harbors. They even had an underwater hatch so the divers could get in and out. Look at the size of that screw. Those are not flaps. Flaps are on airplanes. Okay. These are called planes. They're called stern planes because they're at the stern of the ship. Mm-hmm. Hey, didn't I see something like this in a James Bond Thunderball episode? It's a swimmer delivery vehicle. This is the Fairwater Tower for the NR-1. It was the Navy's deep diving research submarine. It was placed into service and capable of carrying out 13 crew members up to a depth of 3,000 feet. I remember seeing the NR-1 once. It pulled right up next to our submarine. Yep. The NR-1, Navy Research Vessel 1. Saw it in action once. They towed it in and hooked it up right next to our boat. So I want you to think about this. Where you are standing right now, if the boat was actually here, you would be in the water. You would have to come right up here next to the hull. If you wanted to walk fore and aft, you'd have to hug really close to that hull and then dip underneath the fairwaters to get around.
Something like this.
Yep, just like that. Not made for tall people, huh?
No.
This one was much easier. And I remember they used to have a hatch like right here. Huh. And we would go right inside, well, down a little lower. Yeah.
Somewhere here?
Yeah, somewhere around there. They would have a hatch where we would go inside. Wow. So much bigger fairwater. And then the tube would go all the way to the top, and up there was the bridge where you would stand watch while underway on the surface. The slogan was 41 for freedom. But we used to say 40 for freedom and 1 for training. There you go, that was my boat, the USS Daniel Webster, 626. So what do you think this is, Connor? Any idea, huh?
I don't know, something from Top Gun?
No, not even close. Oh.
It's wet.
Yes, it's wet. There's a big puddle of water there. Okay, well let's try it this way. Yeah. So what this is the top of the missile tube. So remember we saw the missile over there?
Yes.
The missile would sit inside here, right? And then they would have this to cover it. It was a piece of plastic that covered it, kept the salt water out. And then when it was time to launch, this would open up. It would be the top of the submarine. That would open up, and then they would ignite the rocket motor in the submarine, and it would go up.
Some things don't react well to bullets. Remember where they were crawling around Red October, the missile silos and the thing, that's these things, you know, Connery and bang. Don't rotate it back and forth. And never, ever, ever, ever foot trigger.
In we go. Looky. Like that. The USS Nautilus from Disney. It's a model of what you might find in a modern nuclear submarine. Missile compartments in the front of the bow. Control room areas. Sonar, radio, cruise mess, cruise berth. Yeah. diesel area, mechanical room, crew's mess. And that would be the reactor compartment and the engineering space. All the way back to where the screws are, the engines. Didn't you have a friend who worked for Rickover?
Yes, back in the day, many years ago.
There's a sonar array. New technology coming from the old to the new. It's basically what a transducer looks like for your sonar array. The picture of Holy Loch, Scotland. I spent a lot of days there. There's a little submarine tender right in the center of the lock. We pull up next to that. That's where we saw the NR1 pull up next to us. Then over here on this side was Dunoon, Scotland. That's where I got you that little toy soldier. Dunoon, Scotland.
It was right here.
Yeah.
So the Blue Crew would come in for 3 weeks and do any work, any maintenance on the boat before they could go out. The Gold Crew would only stay a few days, and then they would leave. And when they got back here to the base, that is who I would report to if I needed something.
The Gold Crew?
The Gold Crew. And then your dad would, after those 3 weeks of maintenance, would go out to sea for 2 months. And we were given a time of several days. In those several days, the boat at some point would come back to the surface, return to the tender, and he would be able to call me. But with no cell phones, you had to be home or you wouldn't
remember
get the
that.
call.
I remember you be waiting by the phone a lot.
41 for Freedom, named after very famous people in the United States. From George Washington, Daniel Webster, to Daniel Boone, to Will Rogers. The various different types of missiles, ending up with the big tridents. So, do you know what this is, other than just places to throw switches?
Maneuvering?
It's maneuvering, that's right. And this is where our friend Paul used to stand, right here at the throttles. Yeah, he did something like that. This here was the reactor plant control panel. This here's the engine order telegraph. When I would sit up front at the helm and the captain would say, "Oh, head standard," I would turn the knob and then this would go to head standard and it would radio back to here maneuvering and it would show them where we wanted to go and then they would answer back, "Yes, we understand the head standard." That's how we communicated how fast the ship was to go. And then of course the throttleman here would adjust the steam so the ship would reach the speed that it was supposed to. Something caught Connor's attention here. Yep. I think you've been disconnected. But this was known as the growler. If the captain or officer of the deck wanted to talk to somebody, they would select where that was to go, and then they would turn the little handle, which is not turning right now, but it would then go and growl at the other end, and they would know to pick up and talk to somebody. And that is where I sat. The one on the right is the helm, and the one on the left controlled the stern planes. You remember I talked about the stern planes earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so left and right was the helm, was the rudder, and then forward and back controlled the fairwater planes. And in front of us was all the information we needed. The compass, the depth gauge, where the rudders were, you know, where the fairwater planes were. Tell us all that information.
Wow.
To keep track of where we were going. Okay, this was the ballast control panel. You know what they did here?
What?
This is where we moved water around the submarine. There were pump controls and switches and different tanks, and we would make sure that the submarine stayed balanced with a neutral buoyancy while we were underway.
Guys,
I'm I'm gonna go see if the other rooms are still slanted. Do you know what that? Do you know what that is?
Radar?
Nope. Nope. That was the fire control panel for torpedoes.
Oh.
That was the trigger.
Oh, this thing?
Yep. Periscopes.
Down periscope. Oh, these things are.
Should be able to move it around.
Yep.
Yep. Take a look outside.
I need to take off my glasses.
I think we should swap.
In here. Okay, yeah, it's kind of foggy. Oh, there's the mountains. I see them.
Here's what Dr. Fate would do.
Here we see the enlisted dolphin pins for qualified submariners, officer's gold and pewter for the enlisted, and of course the patrol pin to commemorate each patrol on a boomer. Each country has their own dolphins and with its own style. We'd often trade pins with sailors from other countries. I particularly liked the ones from the United Kingdom. Submarines are supposed to be stealth, and of course stealth started with the elusive David Bushnell turtle. The concept of the turtle was that you would get out into the harbor and get up close to the enemy ships. You could drill a hole in the bottom of the ships. You could maybe pack some gunpowder in there into the magazine, or you could get up close to the rudder chain and disable it. The first official submarine was the USS Holland SS-1. Larger and faster boats came with World War I and World War II. Here's a model of a World War II boat, similar to the one in Operation Petticoat. Of course, here's the Nautilus. Before long, they started making them in the teardrop shape. The Triton was one of the largest submarines ever built, had 2 reactors, and was considered a command submarine. I was on the Sea Devil, which was a Sturgeon-class submarine. There were a lot of these built. And of course the Lafayette class, which the Daniel Webster was that type of boat. So you could say I was on the Devil and the Daniel Webster. Fans of Red October would recognize this as the USS Dallas. I also served aboard that boat. As the older boats became obsolete, they replaced them with the Ohio class, the Seawolf, and the Virginia class. Mark 48 had a very dangerous fuel. If the fuel ignited, it created a cyanide gas. Mark 14 torpedoes. Mark 48 torpedo. The Subrock. The Mark 37 torpedoes. The Mark 49 mine.
Almost kind of looks like a James Bond kind of rocket.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Diving helmet. Yeah, kind of a diving bell. It was a submarine rescue vehicle. This thing right here, this silver thing, this is really interesting. This was used for President John F. Kennedy. Because of his back injury, he couldn't climb down into the submarine. So they made this elevator, they put him in it, and then they lowered it into the submarine so that he could get aboard. I suppose they could use it for Biden too if he needed to get aboard a submarine. Okay, let's go see the Nautilus now. Okay, so it's really windy. I don't know if this is going to work, but do you see these bridges over here?
Yes.
Those are the bridges that are in the opening scene of Down Periscope. So, you remember going down one of these.
Oh, yes, I do.
I remember going down this thing, scared to death.
It's a long way down when you open that hatch.
It was only 6, but gee.
Yep, I would go down and then he would go down just in front of me. And so we would walk down. That way he wouldn't fall. Nowadays, we don't have to walk down the hatch, we walk down the stairwell. They cut this into the boat just so it would make it easier for people like us. Welcome aboard. Do you know where you're at right here?
The engine room?
Nope.
Torpedo bay?
Torpedo room, yes. See? Right there, torpedo room. And the torpedoes sit up here. And they, if you look around the back there, it's hard to see, but the torpedo tubes are right up front there.
How do you guys carry these?
Okay, so very simple. They just sit in little cradles here, see? And they would load, we would open up a hallway hatch here, and up here, and then they would slide down through the hull of the submarine down into these cradles here. And then we just move them back and forth, and we'd line them up with the tubes.
Okay.
To load them into the tubes. Okay, so how did you fire a torpedo? Once you get it into the tube, how did that work?
Well, first you have to talk to the captain and say, really sorry.
Okay, technically speaking, what you use is called the ejection pump. And that there is a ejection pump. See, it's big long ram. Basically, it's a ram with high pressure air at one end, and then you open the slides to the torpedo and water on the other end, and when they fire the high pressure in at the ram, it pushes the ram and pushes the water and pushes the torpedo out of the tube. And then once the torpedo's out of the tube, it turns on and starts running. And what happens if you don't have a torpedo in there? Makes a big bang. It's called a water slug. You've heard those. And of course, we have berthing in the torpedo room as well. This here is probably the most important room in the whole boat. The head. Yep. Here. Nope. Okay. Oh, going through a first hatch here. Duck down. There you go. Very narrow and shallow in here.
I swear it used to be easier to get through those things.
So here's a shower with a sink. What we have here is the steward's room, little scullery area for the wardroom. It's where the officers would have their meals and their meetings. What we have here is officers' berthing. So 2 per room. Oh, this room, this must have been junior officers. They had 3 bunks. Of course, they had some lockers and drawers and a sink. Yeah, this would have been the actual type of room that Tony Curtis had in that Operation Petticoat. Here's the other end of the hatch. Coming down.
This is a very tight zone. What?
Oh, yeah,
This
here.
is how you do it.
Here.
Lockers.
Oh, yeah, because the...
And of course, the XO, he had a second bunk that could fold down for guests that would come aboard. Yep, this would be the captain's stateroom here.
This anymore?
No, this way.
Through another hatch we go.
You guys
Bump.
don't even- Did you bump your head?
I bumped my hat.
Okay, well, your hat's one thing.
Not touchy.
What do we got in here? And no submarine should go to sea without the yeoman. Because, you know, paperwork is everything when you're at sea. Small arms locker. Now, did anybody notice this ladder here?
Yes.
You know where that goes?
Nope.
That goes all the way up to the top of the sail, where the bridge would be.
Right.
And you'd stand up there while you were underway on the surface. The gentleman standing there is at the attack scope because it had a very narrow profile. Would not be easily picked up by radar or by somebody just looking for one. The observation scope, though, made a bigger wake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
And this area right here, this is where I worked. At the
Oh,
chart,
that's right.
the quartermaster station. We'd plot the ship's position, the destination, and keep track of enemy ships. These are old fire control panels, where you'd find the solution for your targets. Of course, you realize there's only 2 types of ships in the Navy, right?
I read
There's submarines and targets. Here, Connor, do you know what that is?
A dial.
Yep, that's the growler, remember?
Yeah.
This is the electrical hallway where all the switches for the electrical systems. More internal electronics and communications room. Of course, we had another area where we had other navigation equipment, including the radar. Of course, before we had all the electronic gears, we relied upon sextants. We still carried those on the submarines, just in case everything else went out. Here we are at the back of the front of the boat. The hatch is closed, no access beyond there. Of course, here's the sonar room, rigged for red. We listen in and identify everything in the ocean. The ESM bay.
Oh, cool.
Down ladder ice.
Already lost.
We're stuck on this side.
So what do we have here?
The controls.
The helm.
Mr. Sulu. It actually let you have cup holders in the control room?
Yes, you definitely wanted cup holders in the control room
yeah,
because you didn't want anything to spill.
But you were allowed to have coffee and stuff?
Yeah, coffee, hot chocolate, and I would make my own concoction of chocolate shakes out of the milk machine and the ice cream machine. It was the only way to drink powdered milk. So do you guys remember me talking about the ballast control panel where they pumped all the water around? It was next to the helm. Here's the helm. And this is the old style ballast control panel with levers and knobs and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, nowadays it's more of a computerized thing. And this here was a compass. Yep. Gyro compass. And there's another one over there. Then up here is the bathymeter to sound the depth. Of course, we had these alarms here too. Collision alarm, diving alarm, emergency alarm, fire alarm. So Connor, what's this called?
Again.
It's a growler. And of course, the radio room. Lots of transmitters and receivers. Okay, show us how to get through the hatch. That's right. Hold the overhead, that way you don't bump your head.
Yeah. Use your legs first.
See if I can do this like I used to. Yep. Okay, that way I don't bump my head.
There you go.
Nope, I'm stuck. Not as flexible as I used to be. Okay, the crew's mess. This is where the crew would eat. And of course, we made a mess out of it. And of course, the mess cook had to clean it all up. And I did my time as a mess cook. So the guy's wearing an EAB, that's an emergency breathing apparatus, because if you lost oxygen or smoke or something toxic got into the submarine, you can't breathe. So you had to have masks everywhere for the whole crew. And we'd put those on at least 5 times a week to practice. And they would connect to the pipes that ran throughout the submarine overhead, and you would have to take your hose and go from connection to connection to connection as you walked through the boat. Mm-hmm. What do you see in here, Cam?
Quarters.
Berthing. Yep. And this is where I slept. It was a place like this. That's about all the room I had. See these white bags?
Yeah.
That's where you put your dirty laundry.
Oh.
And then you'd maybe have a locker if you were lucky. If not, you'd have a locker under your bunk.
Huh.
Down here is the battery well. So here's a bit of interesting information. If you had flooding in here, would you want any of that seawater to get into the battery well?
No.
No, because it would mix with the battery acid and cause chlorine gas.
Oh.
So if you ever had flooding, the first thing you would do is grab the mattresses out of the berthing area and throw it over the top of the battery well to prevent the seawater from going in.
Oh.
That did happen to me on one patrol. That was in Australia when we had that storm.
Oh, yeah.
And water was coming in through the upper hatch when it was still open.
That hurricane?
Yeah, we were anchored and water started flowing in the people tank. So Connor, what's this over here?
Another phone.
It's a growler. Here's an interesting little device. This is called bug juice.
That's right.
What was bug juice? Well, it was like a Kool-Aid type of thing, but it was very acidic. As a matter of fact, the bug juice was so acidic that we used it to clean the grill.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yep, that grill right there, that's how we used to clean it. So here's where Buckman would serve, you know, and make the food. Right in the galley. Yep. And this is the scullery, or the dish room, where the sterilizer, and you'd wash the dishes and keep everything stocked and stowed. This here is the goat locker, or better known as the Chief Petty Officer quarters. And more berthing. Yep. More berthing.
It was very nice to meet you.
Sunny.
Oh, right.
Okay, back out on the pier. It's a little windy. Yeah, that was the USS Nautilus. Only one more thing to see here.
The periscope.
Yep, there are only two types of ships. Submarines and targets. What'd you think of the submarine museum?
It was awesome. It was good to come back after 11 years.
Yeah, you're a lot bigger now.
Yes.
Harder to fit through the hatches, I'll bet.
Yes, definitely.
And what was that phone called?
I forget. Every
The Growler.
time.
The Growler, it was called the Growler.
Growler. I've got to remember that.
Yeah. So, what'd you think of the tour?
I liked it.
Liked it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're small enough to fit through the hatches.
Yes.
Wasn't as hard for you.
No.
No. Okay.
A little harder.
Yeah. Just on a post note, we went for dinner for Cameron's birthday at the Cherry Garden. He's trying sushi for the first time.
We ate at Cherry Garden. The atmosphere was quiet. It played some nice music there. I ordered sushi rolls, which were absolutely delicious. I tried wasabi. No!
16th birthday for Cam. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to... Is he wearing a Blues Brothers costume?
Birthday,
Happy birthday to...
Cameron.
Tolerated one.
Happy birthday to you. 316. Never been kissed.
I wouldn't say that.
Check on